3,000 years ago, Britain wasn't even an island. It was a frozen edge of Europe, joined to the continent by a vast plain now lost beneath the North Sea, home to almost no one. This unpromising wasteland would one day command the largest empire the world had ever seen. But Britain's rise from Ice Age to empire didn't happen because it kept the world out. It happened because the world kept coming in. Romans, Anglo-Saxons, Vikings, Normans, each leaving something behind that Britain would eventually turn into power. That story begins not with an empire, but with ice. At the peak of the last glacial maximum, a sheet of ice covered Scotland, Wales, and northern England. Greenland ice cores record a temperature drop of 15 degrees across Europe, leaving the region locked in an unforgiving freeze. On the southern fringe of the ice, cold winds swept across a barren tundra. Pollen records from Bodmin Moor show that only resilient steppe plants like wormwood could survive the dry, frozen soil. For thousands of years, this was a silent world, hostile to human life. Around 15,000 years ago, the climate began a slow, fitful warming. As the glaciers retreated, they exposed a scarred terrain still physically tethered to Europe. This land bridge, a low-lying plain known as Doggerland, sat where the North Sea is today. When the first Mesolithic hunter-gatherers followed migrating herds back into the region, they entered a fragile environment. Archaeologists estimate that the population of Britain during this early Holocene recovery was incredibly small, averaging fewer than 5,000 individuals across the entire landmass. This sparse population lived on the edge of survival. Rising seas driven by melting ice caps steadily swallowed the lowlands of Doggerland. Around 8,150 years ago, a catastrophic undersea landslide off Norway triggered the Storegga tsunami, sending massive waves crashing through the southern plains. By 6,000 years ago, the water claimed the final land bridge, permanently isolating Britain. At this starting point, the islands were not a land of promise, but a cold, fragile outpost at the edge of the world. This geographic isolation defined Britain's early history. Positioned on the far northwestern fringe of the continent, the island sat thousands of miles from the Mediterranean basin, where agriculture, metallurgy, and early writing first developed. The surrounding seas, which would later shield the nation, initially acted as formidable barriers. Crossing the English Channel and the North Sea required braving treacherous currents and unpredictable gales, severely limiting contact with continental trade networks. New ideas and technologies did not flow easily across these waters. They arrived slowly, often delayed by centuries, carried by small groups of seafaring migrants. The local climate presented its own distinct obstacles. Damp, cool weather and heavy, waterlogged soils made early farming a constant struggle. Agricultural techniques that thrived in the warmer, drier climates of southern Europe required generations of slow, trial and error adaptation before they could succeed in Britain's short, unpredictable growing seasons. For thousands of years, this remoteness kept the islands on the extreme periphery of human development. While grand civilizations rose and fell in the east, Britain remained a quiet, undeveloped territory. No early signs suggested that this cold, sparsely populated archipelago would eventually exert global influence. Geography did not guarantee future greatness. Instead, it created environmental hurdles that delayed progress, leaving the early inhabitants to survive on the margins of the known world. In 43 AD, the Roman Empire invaded Britain, ending thousands of years of isolation. This conquest did more than impose military rule. It bound the remote island to a vast Mediterranean network. Over the next 4 centuries, Roman engineers laid down 10,000